Hey guys, and welcome to a video on a brand new event going on in Korea. So there's a brand new Try Accessories event in Korea. Once per week for the next 4 weeks, players can obtain a free version of the Try Narc Earring, the Try Ring of Crescent Guardian, Try Basilisk Belt, and the Try Ogre Ring. They can obtain them once each and once per week, which means at the end you'll have one of each. And combined with the Capotia set for level 61 and 62, so the ring and earring, you'll have a full set of soft cap tri-yellow accessories. So, obviously, this event is insane. It provides incredible value for both newer players and geared players. And it seems that Pearl Abyss is attempting to finally solve two of the issues that have sort of plagued Black Desert for about 2 years now, since the introduction of Valencia Part 1. These two issues are the event-based economy and when they changed the game's progression philosophy with Valencia Part 1. Originally, with the plus 15 system, endgame gear was attainable by the average player with enough time invested. Even the introduction of Liverto and boss gear was attainable with some effort. Obviously, it wasn't as easy as getting plus 15 green gear, but it was still attainable. However, pen gear is not attainable. The progression philosophy for Black Desert went from a sort of WoW-esque style where players were encouraged to work hard for a few weeks or even a few months to earn the best gear possible until gear was improved again, to a system where progression was made into an ongoing goal that players could work on at all times. Now, this philosophy isn't a problem when gear scaling is toned down. However, the difference between even a small amount of gear score in Black Desert is immense. This, combined with the ongoing progression, means that the difference between a new player and veterans who have been playing the game for years is continuously growing. The sort of line that demarcates an elite player, a top-tier player, or a competitive player is continuously growing further and further away from the starting line that all players have to begin at. Pearl Abyss has been attempting to solve this issue repeatedly over the past year. Their first attempt was about a year ago in the summer of 2017 with the Oscilla set. And from there they've made numerous changes, both big and small, to bridge this gap. A few of these are the introduction of the Capotia items for level 61 and 62, and as of last patch, level 64. Reigning enhancements, which gave Pry and Duo accessory drops and was then made permanent. Extra accessory boxes from attendance rewards in various months. Some months we've gotten 2 fine accessory boxes, other months we've gotten a sort of medium accessory box. And they've also introduced the Valks rewards, which gave extra materials for enhancement of weapons and armor. The Termian Duo Crescent Ring, which was given as a reward for one of the Termian quests with the Termian Water Park in 2018. And immediately following that, the Soft Cap set from the Node War event, which only lasted for 1 week but gave players a taste of what soft cap was like during the week that the set was active for any players that hit level 60. So, from this brief history, we can sort of see that Pearl Abyss is actively attempting to see how much free gear they can give new players to catch up without driving away the veterans of the game. This is definitely a good sign, as games where only the truly hardcore can compete see their player bases dwindle rapidly, leaving behind only a small subset of hardcore players. Now, I'm going to give 2 different examples of games here, sort of gaming genres rather, and I'm going to move away from other MMOs this time. The first example is fighting games. Fighting game enthusiasts are some of the most familiar with this concept, as it's a common phenomenon with new fighting games. New fighting games will often start with large player bases. An excellent example would be For Honor. However, after launch, the game will continuously shed players, like most games do. But fighting games sort of go to the extreme with this, as they shed players, but new players don't join and stay around in fighting games for long. Due to the nature of fighting games, the requirements for entry into competitive play is immense for players starting a couple months into the game's lifespan. More casual games can ignore this to some extent, such as Smash Bros., as the game is still very fun to play with a group of friends who are all mostly at a low level of gameplay. But after launch in a fighting game, new combos, techs, and sort of tricks are being continuously discovered as the game goes on. New characters are also often added within the first couple of months as either DLC or as a free DLC, and players that have played since the beginning sort of learn all of this as they go. But a new player that joins several months in needs to both learn all the new techs, tricks, and combos, as well as the movesets of all the characters in the game, as they also gain the skills necessary to compete with players that have been playing the game for months now and have been getting more and more skilled. This acts as a rather large barrier to entry, as new players to fighting games that have survived for a couple months or even years have to compete with players that have been getting better and better, and often spend their first couple weeks or even months getting stomped. Now, the second genre that is fairly similar is card games. I'm not talking poker or blackjack, but Hearthstone, Gwent, and Magic. And card games, unlike fighting games where it's game knowledge and skill that require or represent the massive barrier to entry, card games do still require game knowledge and skill, but card games, the barrier to entry is much more often, similar to the gear in Black Desert, it's cards themselves. So for card games, the number of cards that exist in the current standard environment usually represents the barrier to entry for a new player or even for returning players. At the beginning of a card game, all players start off at the same point. Obviously, players that are willing to spend money can zoom ahead, but for free-to-play players, they are limited by the number of cards that they can earn due to the free-to-play mechanics given to the game. If they can only earn 10 packs a week, then free-to-play players will earn 10 packs that week and make do with the cards within. After a couple of weeks to months, they will have competitive decks and can compete with the players that have spent money to acquire these right off the bat. However, players joining a couple months into a card game will have to acquire all these cards on their own while playing against both free-to-play players and pay-to-win players who already have competitive decks full of rares and mythics or legendaries that they can use to effortlessly stomp players no matter how good they are skill-wise, as there's such a large disparity between their cards and their decks. So the barrier to entry for a card game is either the dollars that they need to drop to acquire a competitive deck, or the time that they need to put in to acquire the equivalent of that deck via free-to-play methods. In both these examples, the barrier to entry between a new player and a veteran is continuously growing. As more and more techs and combos are discovered, the fighting game becomes more and more complex, and veteran players become better and better, spanking any new player who tries to join fairly easily, often getting perfect games. In card games, the card pool becomes larger and larger, causing new players to despair about how to collect all the cards they need for their deck, which can also easily become bad or outdated if the meta shifts, rendering all the cards they've earned so far and crafted towards a certain deck completely useless. So both of these examples apply to Black Desert. It was fine back when the limit for gear was plus 15, which was pre-Valencia Part 1. New players could catch up within a couple weeks and then upgrade to Liverto and later boss gear once those were added to the game. Accessories were also much more tame, as players lacked the silver to enhance past reasonable levels, which was mainly due to duo or tri-blue accessories. Thus, the number of accessories gained from grinding and from events was for the most part sufficient for the player base. However, now catching up is much more difficult, as Tet has become the baseline for armor and weapons, and accessories required for soft cap are tri-yellows and in some cases even Tet, which is mostly at the moment just for Rings of Crescent Guardian, but is slowly creeping up for other accessories as well. Many soft cap or higher guilds have multiple players with at least one pen and some Tet accessories. As gear has gotten better, the event-based economy also starts to come into play as a problem, as the number of accessories available is no longer enough to meet the demands of the players. Back when duo blue or at most tri-blue accessories and Pride duo yellow accessories was sort of the limit for most players, the number of accessories required each month from login rewards, or the players that would grind ogres or hex sanctuary for witches earrings, for example, were enough to cater to the demand of the limited number of players with the silver required to purchase these accessories and then smash them together. However, now that tri-yellow accessories is the baseline for endgame competitive PvP, you need many more accessories, as going for duo you only need about 5 to 10 of that accessory if you want to reliably hit duo. Going for tri, however, you need more than double that. You need 20 to 30 often to create an average tri, and going for tet you need even more. The event-based economy no longer provides enough fine accessory boxes to suit the demand for accessories that players have. And it also limits the number available and causes an artificial scarcity, further limiting players' abilities to gear up and increasing the price of yellow accessories to the max at all times, regardless of how many people grind basilisks or ogres, both of which are generally terrible ideas, although I don't know anyone that grinds ogres. By adding better and better welfare gear, as well as creating more events that give already upgraded gear, such as this one in Korea, Pearl Abyss allows new players to catch up to the baseline gear necessary for competitive play, while not giving them the ability to stomp veterans, as their gear will still be worse. In this event, new players will still be missing 2 accessories and their armor and weapons. They'll only have 4 tri-yellow accessories, they won't have tet weapons or gear, and they won't have the level 61, level 62 capote items if they're newer players. They'll also lack both the game knowledge and the skills required, both gaming skill and literal skills from leveling, so 5960, that they need to exploit their new gear score. Adding real items over the capote and Kaidict items also make these events great for veteran players, as they can choose to either sell the extra item for silver, as tri-yellow accessories are worth upwards of 1 to 1.5 billion silver each, or use it to attempt to create an even better item with a backup already prepared. Unlike the Capotia set, these items have real value and contribute to the economy, as new players will just instantly equip them, as that's going to be their accessories for a long time. Lesser geared players will instantly equip them, and geared players can make the choice between selling the item to fund a high pre-order for better items, or using it as a backup and trying to enhance their current item to go for a tet or even a pen accessory. So Black Desert's biggest problem is that while the other examples I use, so both fighting games and card games, they do have high barriers to entry to competitive play, but they're also both accessible and fun for new players who just want to mess around with friends in a fair competitive match, as they offer avenues to play competitively with players at your level. You can go into ranked matches for both fighting games and card games and get matched with players at roughly your level, as long as you're not a brand new player, as brand new players do need to suffer for at least a little amount of time, usually a couple days to a week as they learn the game, before they can start fighting the lowest members of the totem pole in ranked. As players move into the competitive scenes, they are matched against low-tier players until they become good enough to move up and start ranking up through the tiers and getting better and better, either learning more combos, getting better at fighting in the fighting games, or acquiring better cards, getting more game knowledge, and becoming better at playing the game in card games. However, in Black Desert, new players are instantly thrust into competition with top-level players as soon as they leave the Alvia server, and even before that, if returning softcap players come back and play on the Alvia server themselves. There's no option to turn on PvP only against opponents of similar gear score in a real PvP environment such as Node Wars. When your guild accidentally drops into the same node as Bach or Black Rose, all you can really do is laugh at your own misfortune. And my guild has fought both of those guilds in the past month. Players must get to a high level of gear score to be able to truly participate in Node Wars without feeling like a liability. 500 plus is pretty much the bare minimum to be a decent player even in Tier 1 Node Wars, as any guild can drop on any node for Tier 1. Black Desert does not segregate PvP like most other games, which means players are basically instantly thrust into the fire or dropped into the deep end right off the bat. By attempting to provide a baseline gear for players via events, Pearl Abyss is reducing the barrier for entry to new players while simultaneously aiding veterans by giving them more opportunities to improve their own gear score. This Tri-Accessory event would be amazing if it came to NA and EU, and I really hope that players sort of make their voices heard and encourage Cacao and Pearl Abyss to give this event to other servers. So before I end here, as a quick side note, a lot of players on Reddit and the forums have been arguing that Korea, having existed for longer as a server, thus has a higher gear score, and deserves this event unlike NA and DU. Korea, however, only got Valencia Part 1 a couple of months before NA and EU, who got them on June 29, 2016. Korea only got it a couple months before that. And silver earnings have recently soared in all servers, thanks to continuous events, changes to drop rates, and new ways to earn huge payouts, such as sea monster hunting. The reason Korea has a higher gear score isn't because it's been around as a server for much longer, it's because pay to win is much more prevalent in Korea, with melting outfits for Cron Stones and purchasing such as Valk's Cry, than in North America and EU. But Pearl Abyss has also stated that they want to introduce a global siege scene, and if they want to actually introduce this global siege scene, then providing events that give such amazing gear as tri-yellow accessories to one region but not others is a prime way to really anger those competitive players that already have that gear. This would only benefit new players that want to join the game, or lesser geared players that are still on the fence about if they should try to actually go for soft cap, because it gives them good gear, but it also benefits competitive players, and it doesn't provide them with full soft cap. They still have to work for Tet weapons and armor, they still have to reach level 61 and 62 for Capote items to round out the soft cap set, and even then, tri-yellow accessories have been the baseline soft cap for over a year now. Soft cap has been steadily moving up, and this is still just the baseline for soft cap. So closing out, definitely comment below what you think. Do you think this event should come to North America and EU? Do you think tri-yellow accessories is too much? Or is the fact that, similar to the Termian event, that these provide actual accessories that can be smashed together by veteran players or sold for a quick infusion of several billion silver, outweighs the downsides to giving players gear that other players have had to work for months for? Personally, I think it's a good idea, but I know it's a very divisive opinion, so definitely comment below what you think. Anyways, guys, as always, let me know what you thought below, subscribe if you liked it, and have a good one.